Five. All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to my channel. This is Roxana Bangura of the Roxana Bangura channel here on YouTube. Benvenido, mi gente, benvenido. Hoy soy Roxana Bangura. Este es mi canal de YouTube. Also, Roxana Bangura, well, the Bangura Institute, I should say, on Facebook, and the Bangura Chronicles on Facebook. Welcome back. Today, I have a pleasure of speaking with Miss Tonye Faloughi-Ekezie, and she's my sister hailing from Nigeria. I don't know what city she's in, but she lives in Nigeria, and there's a lot for us to share today. She's a mompreneur. She has several businesses. We'll talk about her life in Nigeria, maybe her life where she's grown up in Europe, her travels, her family, her children, her marriage. We'll talk about a lot of stuff today. So welcome, and I will hand everything over to you, Tonye. So if you want to do a brief intro.
Thank you so much for that wonderful intro. As Roxana said, my name is Tonye Faloughi-Ekezie. I live in Lagos, Nigeria. I am Nigerian. And so I'm a mom who kind of have found my place eventually in life through having a family and having children. My background is in TV and film production, and I've kind of transferred those skills into what I do now. So I have my own production company, which is called Tee Off Media, and our major platform within that company is called Simone's Oasis. You'll see the handle next to my name, and we have 3 goals. I have 3 goals, and my team has 3 goals with Simone's Oasis. 1, we understand that there's a serious lack of representation of our Black, Nigerian, and African children in content. So we aim to kind of produce ourselves as well as aggregate content for our melanin kids, but obviously skewed more to the African continent. Secondly, I have 2 children. The second called Simone, hence Simone's Oasis, and she is a wonderful girl who also has a diagnosis of Down syndrome and cardiomyopathy, which is a fancy way for a heart condition, to say heart condition. And with the journey of representation for Black children, I also found that representation of our special needs children is really poor as well. Generally, whatever complexion or race, but even more if you happen to be a person of special needs of color. And then thirdly, is really our third goal is to empower the content creator, the content producer, the content maker, our creatives, because it's really hard to make it on this side, just because it's a lot of lack of infrastructure and a lot, and I guess people don't really value the talent, but they like the content. So it's also understanding that we need to support our content producers, our content makers, our creators, because all of us are creators in some way, and it's really important to kind of empower our children in the next generation to take ownership of their own stories, and don't think it's anything weird to just tell your story as a Black person, as a Nigerian person, as an African person. And that's really kind of what we do generally.
Well, that was a whole lot, and that was beautiful. There's so many things that I identify, I support. One of the things that I want to know about more is let's talk about. I saw a post where you said, you're a mother now, and even though you're a television person, you're a broadcaster, you have this communications journalistic background. I think you wrote that, I've been maybe not necessarily introverted, conservative, shy, whatever the word is, but because of your motherhood and your children, self-empowerment. So we have Suzanne is making comment. Yes, so important to empower our children. Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you for tuning in, Suzanne. My question to you is, what clicked within you to advocate for your child and to advocate for other Nigerian children and essentially, other children in the region, across the continent and essentially the diaspora? What was the spark?
Well, it wasn't like immediately my daughter got the diagnosis late. She got the diagnosis at 4.5 months. So we had already bonded before that news came. But really, it wasn't until 2 years later that kind of this idea started kind of going around in my head. As you said, I'm an introverted extrovert. I don't like to be in front. I don't like to be in front of the camera much and things like that. But people say, "But you used to be a model." I said, "Yeah, but it wasn't me I was presenting, so I worked for some really good companies in the past, but I was always behind the scenes. Like when they asked me to be in front, I'd kind of dodge, because I have an extreme fear, like stage fright, and I get extremely anxious. So I never thought I'd be doing this, like never. But as an advocate for your child, and if I'm speaking to people, and it wasn't like my intention to start with, it's just I started posting in 2019, 2 years ago, pretty much 2 years ago this month is when we started posting. I'll just share stuff, comment, and then I started kind of doing little videos to just help people learn what I learned, like really fine motor skills stuff, really simple stuff at home, because I realized that here in Nigeria, therapies are not covered by insurance at all. So you have to pay out of pocket. And how many people in this population can afford to pay out of pocket if we were barely able to do it? Like we had support from my parents and parents-in-law because we just had a brutal 3 years and we were skint. And so that's how I was able to pay for the therapies here in Nigeria. But what if someone doesn't have that support system? They may still have a mobile phone and access to data. Let me share what I've learned. I'm not saying I'm an expert, but let me share what I've learned. And I know costs zero money or very little money to do with your child, especially in the early years, because early intervention is key to giving children with special needs a fighting chance as they get older to be kind of integral part and to fit into mainstream society. So that kind of gave me the impetus. But like standing in front of people, thousands of people in real life, I got thrown into the deep end in 2020, end of 2019 with that, with Union Bank. They wanted me to kind of just talk about my journey. And I was meant to be on a small little stage, maybe 100 people, and I was already freaking out. But there was so much demand that they put me on the big stage, which had like 1,000 people. But as I knew that was coming, I'd been praying on it. A friend of mine is like an HR and life coach. So we had some sessions. We did some sessions together and I prepped. And I did it in front of my husband and my sister and I practiced and I was so scared. But, I feel like God sent me both my children, my husband, and just this miracle child for a reason. And I would do others a disservice if I didn't share the experience, if I didn't share what I learned. And a friend of mine is an actor, Sule Remy. He's an actor in the UK. He does a lot of theatre. And we were sitting down one day when I was in London and I said, look, let me confess to you, I'm scared to death about public speaking. How can you help me? Can you give me some tips? And he said something that lands with me to this day. And he was like, look, remember, you don't have to be perfect. But remember that they're there to get the knowledge you have. And I was like, whoa. And that just kind of blew my mind. They want to know what you know. So however it comes out, it's going to come out. But you're going to be giving that crucial information that they've been searching for. And I've really held on to that. Because it's scary every time. I just did one last week. I did the GTB Autism Conference. And I pretty much I think I took over the panel. So it's really good. I'm getting more confident. It's a work in progress. It's also understanding how, your life experience and your life journey, you have choices to make. And I just chose to just feel the fear and do it anyway, like the book. And if I mess up and people laugh, so be it. But I have responsibilities, right? Like Suzanne, she's a champion too, she if we didn't do it, who's going to do it for our children? We have to do it.
Absolutely.
If we mess up,
Absolutely. One of my favorite quotes is, What we want is on the other side of fear. So that's something that I try to live by. You know, you're scared. Yeah, I'm scared. I'm nervous. You know, but I have to. It has to get done. It has to get done. So my question to you is: now that you've become this advocate, this voice, this representation for children who are othered, who have different needs, who are differently abled. Um, what has been, have you seen, I know it's a lot of it is virtual, but just talking to people in your community, going around town, you know, the different community leaders that you're dealing with, the different projects that you have in the actual community, has there been a improvement or a change or a change in perceptions? And I say that to say that, you know, my family is Sierra Leonean and Gambian. Okay, so I know from moving within those communities, the perception of people who are differently abled, it's a very poor perception. There's a lot of ignorance, stereotyping, a lot of misinformation around people who are differently abled, and there are really no mechanisms of support. There's, like you said, there's no infrastructure around these communities. With you doing this work, you being this advocate, you having these platforms, you know, with your skills, your degree, your background, your children, your family, all of these things that you bring to the table, have you seen an impact, a positive impact amongst your, in your community, you know, your day-to-day community, in it, virtually as well as, you know, outside of you know, social media?
Well, I think there's people who preceded me in this, who years preceded me in this, right? Um, I believe there's been change. So when I came back, the 3 years we'd been out of Nigeria, like before I left Nigeria, I didn't know what autism was. In the 3 years that I'd been out and we came back, it was like autism had exploded. And I don't think it was because it was occurring more, but I think people were more conscious, people were more aware of what was going on, people were getting assessed and getting those diagnoses. And because of that, then there was this change in that, you know, therapy started happening, training started happening, people were going to get their doctorates and things like that to say, okay, well, this is happening, we need to kind of be able to deal with this within our society. But really, it's really middle class upwards. And the key is tapping into middle class downwards. Middle class upwards are getting the idea, but it's still a lot of ignorance. But because you know, we have a huge population, and we have a lot of schools are also picking up on this as well, which is great, but also has a kind of a negative side as well, in the terms of what skills are they actually bringing, what trainings are they actually doing, the special needs services they're providing, are they really true, kind of stuff like that, or are they just trying to exploit vulnerable parents? So that's also happening as well. But in terms of the awareness, there's definitely more awareness happening. Before you can go to changing society and changing infrastructure, you got to let people know what's going on. And we're still kind of in the awareness stage, and moving now to say, okay, these are the changes that actually have to happen day to day on ground. You have people who get a diagnosis for a baby, for example, with Down syndrome, and they're going to church for a cure. Nobody's saying you shouldn't go to church and pray. God knows I continue to pray every day, but they also need to be kind of doing things to help the baby at the same time, not putting the baby on a fast to you know, take this diagnosis or this wickedness or abomination away. Children with special needs are still being called cursed. They're still called, I mean, my child's been referred to as an abomination. These things are still going on. You know, parents are abandoning those children, or if the mom chooses to keep the child, the father abandons, or vice versa. So there's still a lot of ignorance on ground. And the key is, like, if I, in my little way, can just show that, hey, you know, it's all right. In fact, it's not been a curse or abomination. She's been a blessing and a miracle and a positive impact on our entire family and beyond. And that's my little way. There's great foundations that have sprung up and companies that are really doing impactful work. I can't do what they do. Like, I look at Mo Rainbow Foundation, for example, and I'm just like, how? Like, how are you managing to do this? And I realize, you know, everybody has their own way. I can't do what she does, but I support her and we work together. She can't do what I do. Do you know what I mean? So we all kind of can work together in tandem to kind of create this awareness and understanding so that we can then secondly change the society and create infrastructure to deal with these issues.
So this company that you mentioned, can you say the name again?
Yes.
What did you just say? The company?
Yes, Mo Rainbow Foundation. You'll find them on Instagram, on Facebook, but just look for Mo Rainbow. So the owner's name is Tola Makinde, and she has a daughter called Modupe, short Mo, who has Down syndrome, who's 10 years old and the most amazing child. And because of her experience, and she just went all in, and she has an actual foundation. They support parents, they support kids with special needs, specifically Down syndrome, but they do also attend to children with some other needs as well. And she's an ambassador for the global Save Down syndrome. And she's just a champion. And I'm hoping that I can get Mo to be the voice.
This is a woman, she's Nigerian, yeah?
She's Nigerian, yes.
She's Nigerian, yeah? Okay. We have some questions. Suzanne says, even at 21, her daughter Emma gets suggestions for how to see. And Susanna is one of our sisters in our book, Nomads, and her daughter is sight impaired. So she's, you know, also going through it. And Suzanne, I'll be talking to her later on today. She's from South Africa. She's an international attorney based in Los Angeles. Sarah Tyler, our publisher, says, she's asking you, what has been the best platform to raise awareness? Sarah's husband has polio. He had polio as a child, and she says that we're in Mexico where we live, and it's a very religious country. A lot of people here are Catholic. She says many priests have tried to cure her husband of his polio. So she agrees with the role of religion and how that's impacting her husband's treatment. Yes, I'm a believer. I believe in God, absolutely. But I also know that my God wants me to work. My God doesn't want to sit on my laurels and sit on my hands and expect things to change. I have to put in the work. So
and sometimes we have it wrong. Sometimes we think because we believe that makes it a smooth road. No, it doesn't. It doesn't take the obstacles away. It just gives you another perspective on how to deal with the obstacles. So what Suzanne is saying, I had a good chuckle because I mean my daughter's 6, and I'm getting suggestions on how to take the Down syndrome away, and I'm like, don't take my gift, don't take my miracle. The Down syndrome made my miracle. Do not take my blessing away. And
it's a definite uphill battle. And well, let me ask you, because you obviously being Nigerian, and then you're British as well, part of the greater diaspora. How does that affect perceptions of you with your mission? Your I want to say your life's work. What this platform, this advocacy that you're creating for differently abled children. How has your British, I don't want to say British identity, but the Western influence, how has that impacted how people received you? Because I always think in the back of my mind, I have these experiences because I was born and raised in New York, so that is a part of my identity, and I have to always be careful with the way I interact with people who are from the continent. There are perceptions because I wasn't born and raised in Africa. So my question to you is, how do you navigate that? How do you navigate, hey, this is my situation as a mother, this is my situation with my child, This is what I've decided to do to raise this profile of differently abled children. How has that been received, and the perception of your person, of your identity? How do you navigate that?
Well, I think that's a really good question. And I actually talk about that in my chapter of the book, Nomad CEOs, that we are co-authors on. And because I really
Available on
believe
Amazon
tomorrow, August 30th. Because really, I feel like if I wasn't always thought about as an outsider, I wouldn't have been able to deal with the situation with my children, especially my daughter. I feel like the one directly impacted the other. You know, I am by blood Nigerian and Lebanese, but by birth I'm Nigerian and British. And I've always been an outsider. In Nigeria, I'm an outsider. In England, I'm outsider. I lived in New York. New York, I'm an outsider. I was, you know, so I've always been an outsider, and I just gotten used to it. You know, every day, pretty much, someone asks me where I'm from here. So it's just part of my identity now, right? I just accept it. I don't fight it, and it's brought a lot of benefits for me too. But what it's meant is that I don't really think about it that much. I just get on with it. I just move. I just do it because I can't wait for people to accept me because I'm too yellow, or I'm too dark, or I'm not British enough, or I'm not Nigerian enough. I don't have time. My children are growing. We have things to do. So I don't sit in that. And because of my experience growing up with that, that has fed directly into what I'm doing now. I'm not waiting for stuff to land. I'm like, oh, let's do it. And sometimes that's a problem. I should kind of take more time. But I'm a dreamer, and I just kind of go for it. And then I just go off the cliff, and I figure out how I'm going to land. And that's pretty much how
we're speaking the same language. You know, one of my sayings is get in where you fit in. You know, I don't have to, like, you know, there's this quote, I don't have to break myself down into bite-sized pieces for you to make myself you know, comfortable for you. So I hear what you're saying. You're preaching to the choir, and you know, you have your children, you have your family, and things have to get done. Let's talk about your children. Let's talk about Ugo. And that's short for, does Ugo mean something about an eagle in Igbo?
Yeah, Ugo Chukwu, so God's eagle.
Yes, God's eagle. African names have power. So that is her firstborn son. And how old is your baby boy? How old is he?
7. He's not a baby now. He won't like that. He'll be like, Mom, don't go baby.
7. Okay. Big man. Excuse me, big man Ugo Chukwu. Okay. And how is the dynamic between him and his little sister Simone?
Oh, just amazing. I didn't have to work on that. From the moment like I pushed her out and he came to the hospital to see her, they've been like bonded. Okay. I didn't have to do anything. People ask me all the time, how do you do it? I said, I didn't do anything. It is
what it is.
Each other immediately. So they don't really fight. Yeah, you know, annoying sister who's his shadow, the normal stuff, right? But in terms of them really kind of going at it, they don't really go at it. I mean, and Sim slaps him around a bit, but he just, you know, deals with it.
Can you talk about your books about their lives, the cartoons? Let's dig into that a bit, because you know, I'm a big fan. I'm a big fan.
Yes. Let me show you the front.
Okay, please.
So this is the book that kind of I'm wearing booty shorts. Sorry, people. This was the book that got everything going, and it was actually a conversation that I had with him, that he had with me, and that just kind of I started kind of percolating this conversation. Then I saw them playing, and I was like, I'm just gonna write this story down, and that's kind of how it started. Because when he started asking who people were that would come to the house and be playing with his sister every day, and I would stop him from going in and playing, one day he just got annoyed and was like, Mom, it's not fair now. Why can't I want to play with Simpson and the people that come? And I said, no, it's not play. They're therapists. Your sister has Down syndrome. And he was like, what's Down syndrome? Is there something wrong with her? I said, no, there's nothing wrong with her. So what's Down syndrome? I have to start explaining. He was 4 at the time. What Down syndrome is to a 4-year-old. And I suck. Because, you know, I started getting into chromosomes. He's like, what's a chromosome? I was like, hey, God, dude. How am I going to explain this? I was like, you know what? I explained as best I could. I did a terrible job. And I thought, you know what? He's a kid. Kids learn through stories and visuals. Let me try and find some books on it, like a nice storybook series or something. And I didn't find any storybook series. But the books I did find were all Caucasian characters. So, and they weren't continuous, so you couldn't adapt. But they, you know, a couple of them were really good. This was the first one. I bought, and it's still at the top of our list. My Friend Isabel by Eliza Wollaston. It's actually on our Simone's Oasis Amazon front as well, because I read that book, and it's so simple. And maybe because I was just in a very vulnerable place, I read that book the first time and I started like bawling my eyes out. And I just think it's the most wonderful book. And that at least started to help me communicate to him, and for him to be able to ask questions about her diagnosis. He understood about the heart condition because we'd been dealing with that for years. But really, once her heart was healed or functioning normally, then our focus was the Downs. So we just document that conversation, and from there, I just kept getting ideas for more stories. So I've written 13. I've published 3 from the series. Yeah, 3 from the series so far, and 1 from the toddler series. Because in this journey, I also noticed that our babies, you know, the 0 to 2 years old in our markets, right? We love the hard books. But when we do like the fruits and vegetables, it's like kiwi, strawberry. And I'm like, no child is eating kiwi and strawberry here. Let me put that. You know, like yam, watermelon, pawpaw. I called it African pear. That's the English name because it's different with
that's avocado.
Exactly. So you know, in Igbo is ube, but also kind of like agbalumo is in Yoruba, agbalumo in Igbo is udara. So I kept with the English names to start, but just fruits and vegetables that would be familiar, that they would be seeing in their homes. So that's doing really well. So I want to try and do more of that to kind of readdress some of our literature for our little ones, to adapt it to their environments. And it's really just from this conversation with my son, the superstar, that it's started.
I tell you, motherhood is something. It's something special. Children are so inspiring, and I always say, "Oh, that sounds cliche. That's but it's the truth." You know, my daughter is the driving force for so many things in my life. I love the fact that it's also a cultural lesson. It's a lesson in identity. There's so many things that you've put into these books. You mentioned our local fruit. You mentioned it in the languages of Nigeria, and we need these things. We need to have our own representation to change these narratives. So there's the needle is pushing forward. Sarah has a question. Wants to know, where do you get the hardback books printed? She's asking if you're printing it. Where do they get? What country is it in? China or where have you?
That is a good question, and try to do this question as a publisher. So this is also part of this journey, because we are so colonized mentally to think that nothing good can come from here. So even when an author on the continent writes a book for the continent, we're still printing outside. We're printing in Poland and Turkey and China. So when I wanted to do my initial small print, my test print, I actually did in UK with this lovely, lovely little mom and pop printers. Quality was amazing, but it was expensive. But I was only like printing 100 or 200 just to see. And when I wanted to do a big print, a couple of Nigerian authors, they recommended a printer in China. So I'd done all the things, get ready to go. Then COVID hit. Boom. Hell, I hadn't paid my money, thank God.
Yeah.
Thinking about, we couldn't do it anymore. So I'm like, okay, how are we going to get these books printed? I started kind of looking at printers here. Found 3. The first one didn't really do a good job. The second one did a great sample, but my business was too small for them. So I was pulling out my hair, and another Nigerian author, this author is prolific. She printed like 9, she released 9 books last year, 9 children's books. I don't even know. And she's an accountant, and she's a super mom, and she's a special needs advocate, and she's just a machine. So she recommended her printer, and me, they didn't bomb me yesterday or today. I had to go there in COVID, wear my mask and everything. I said, I need to see where your shop is. And, I was there with the printer.
You must verify.
Oh, man. C9 Printers, Mr. Sam, solid dude. And I was like, she really hooked me up. So every time someone buys my books from me in person or they pick them up, I always get the question, oh, where did you print? Because they can't believe that it was printed here in Nigeria, and it was printed here in Nigeria. That means my first 3 books, everything about it, from the story, the illustrations, the graphic work, the editing, and the printing was done in Nigeria by Nigerians. So for me,
I'm very proud, and I'm very happy to learn of this.
It's proof that, look, we have to change our mentality. We have to give our own people a chance. Not everything foreign is good, but also not everything from home is bad. And don't know what that was. And yeah, it just proves that we can actually do this given the will and the belief.
Given the will. Given the will. Sarah says that she said nothing good could come from here. That quote, she said that made her day. So absolutely, we have to, like I said, there's a lot of conditioning with being, colonized people, subjugated people, and everything matters when you support yourself. You value yourself, your culture, who you are, your identity, and you uphold that.
It's important because we need to get it from when they're babies. Us older people, we're lost. We're trying to reprogram ourselves now. It's the small ones. That's why people I say I have no business doing anything for grown-ups. We need to get to these kids now. It's only because Sarah harassed my life that I'm on this book. But but really, it's so important because, for example, was it last month, I did a poll just for Nigerian Black parents, African parents, to just go through the books they had for their kids in the house and see actually how many represented their child, how many were Caucasian, how many were animals, that kind of thing. And of course, the least were the ones that they needed representation of, right? The least in their library was the ones that featured a Black character. Let's not even get into a Nigerian or African character, just a Black character.
Well,
so it's a real problem.
Yeah, and to piggyback on that, because I'm very much an American child, I'm very much a Black American child, I'm very much an African child, right? So I'm straddling. What I've noticed is within the Black American community, we are very prideful, we are very pro-Black. So I know growing up in New York, my mom always ensured that I had Black baby dolls. She always ensured that, I was exposed to Black things. And of course, I passed that down to my daughter, that she had dolls of color. She had dolls that looked like her or of color, Latino, brown, Black, whatever. It was very important that she saw images of herself. And this is a thing with those in the Black diaspora in the United States. Coming to continental Africans, the ones that I've interacted with, a lot of times you know, you wouldn't, like you said in their houses, they didn't have books that were representative of their culture, of who they are, that looked like them. Why do you think this continues? Why do you think that this persists within the continental African community? Because like I said, you know, ideas of blackness are very different in the Black American, the Black diaspora on the Western side. Why do you think this persists amongst continental Africans?
Well, I think that early 1900s, when, you know, the British and other colonizers, you know, were doing all that scramble for Africa and all that in the first, you know, quarter of the 20th century, I think what they quickly realized was when they got here, I mean, you can go back into the historical records and you can see what they wrote. For example, in Nigeria, and they wrote that these people are very intelligent. They said they've got good systems in place. You know, we were working, the society was working, right? And in order to overcome the natives, they had to overcome them mentally. They had to separate them from their culture. They had to separate them from their society and break them down that way, so that there was this mental poverty. So you started to, right? Because they were limiting people's movements, or they were moving peoples to different areas, or they were saying Nigerians couldn't work in such places or such hierarchies. They were disenfranchising the traditional empires and the traditional rulers and things like that. So over time, with those systems that held the culture together, they were being disrupted, then they could start inputting the things to say, you know, everything they were doing were for our benefit, they were for civilization, not for exploitation of the natural resources, which is obviously what it was about. And over time, that gets absorbed, right? It's like Trump. Right? Like the drip, drip, drip over time, all those alternative facts actually become facts to some people, not because they're true, but because you're fed them over a long period of time and it seeps through. And even though we've been a democracy since, you know, over 20 years, and that we've been independent since 1960, the colonization didn't stop. It just adapted.
It just adapted.
And we need to understand that, yes, we became independent, but colonization didn't end. They just, you know, the British and others, Americans, just found other ways to exploit. And we allowed them, and we were part of that exploitation. So it's now understanding where we are, and we need to know that we actually need to make the active effort to ensure our children understand their culture, understand their history, understand their worth, their value, because they're the ones who are going to speak for us. Yes. They're the ones who are going to uphold, you know, our countries, our rights, our cultures, not only at home but abroad. And it's really important for, you know, for Suzanne's daughter Emma, for your daughter, my daughter, as Africans, right? We're all Africans, to understand our history and understand how important for our children is to lead children, understanding it, to lead us forward in the future and make sure we have a stronghold, a strong presentation in the world going forward. Because I always say America it's all packaging. You know, they say they give you all these warnings about coming to Nigeria, but nobody gives you a warning about all the shootings, right? You know, a friend of mine, his wife, a Ghanaian friend of mine, his wife got shot to death in America. So you think, oh, America is a land paved with gold, but actually it's a really dangerous place to go. And it's more violent than here.
This and you know, there's
branding and packaging.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. You know, that perception of the United States is what, obviously the land of milk and honey is what makes immigrants migrate there. But then you learn certain things. And I know I'm speaking from a place of privilege. I was able to pick up my stick and go to another country. However, there are so many people who are like you, who are Black American or first generation American, however you want to categorize it, who realize what you're saying, and there's many groups, and there's so much social media coverage dedicated to these individuals who realize or who have great problems with the United States, mainly because of the violence, the racism, so many things, and they've decided to leave. There's a Black exodus going on in the United States. It's not new. I mean, people have been doing it since forever. We can go back to what is his name? All these Black great writers and entertainers from World War I, World War II. The writer of Black Boy. I can't believe I'm not remembering this gentleman's name. He's one of the greatest writers that we have from the United States. Well, I say that to say, Black people have been escaping the United States because of racism, oppression, violence.
James Baldwin?
Exactly. Him. James Baldwin, all these individuals that went to Europe and found a whole new life in Europe. Maya Angelou spent time in Ghana. People who have gone to Europe, as well as the continent, wanting to connect. Self-empowerment with Suzanne says that her family is concerned about her safety here in the U.S. And she says she has to check in with them daily. And, as I said, Suzanne is an attorney from South Africa, international corporate attorney. She'll be talking to me later on today. So her family shares these fears because we know random shooting. I don't know if it was last week or the week before last. I cannot keep up. There was a random shooting in Washington, D.C. area. Okay, that is where my ex-husband is, the father of my child, and my nieces and my family are. So I regularly have to keep up with that because there's violence, it's normalized. You almost become numb to it because it's such a part of the American culture, gun culture. The state of Texas, where we're going to visit our family there, the governor of Texas, starting this September 1st, there's a law that you do not need a permit to purchase a gun. You don't need a permit. You don't need an official qualification that says you are legally sound and able to purchase this firearm. You can walk in with your driver's license, there's an application, but you don't need a permit in Texas starting September 1st to purchase a gun. So, these are the sort of things that happen in the United States. Yeah, which is very, very
unfortunate because, I look on that as a Nigerian, I look on that as a British person, I just think, how? It doesn't really make sense. And, the United States, it's a blessed country, but it's similar in Nigeria that when you're so blessed, you're also cursed. And it does boggle me, but as I say, I'm always so grateful. I did university in America, wonderful experience. I had both my children in America and was treated very well. But again, I come from a place of privilege. So my experience would be different than, a lot of people. And even with that understanding of the privilege, you're also able to kind of pick up and know how to navigate certain situations as a foreigner, and not as an American. There are two kind of statuses as Black people in America. You've got the Black American and you've got the Black foreigner. And the Black foreigner is a slight privilege than I think the Black American, even though over the years the Black African has been seen as lower than the Black American. But it's just so complex to be navigating that every day. I just feel sorry for people in America because it just seems very stressful. Although since Trump has gone, it's kind of, people have been breathing a little bit, but just the day-to-day living there has to be extremely stressful because it just seems like at any minute things will pop off.
That's a reality. That's a reality. And I struggle with, at least that's my perception of things. I struggle with sometimes feeling guilty because, I'm not there. But this is not a new thing with me. I've been wanting to travel since I was 14. So, and seeing the gun violence, seeing people getting killed, and there's no type of justification, seeing the impunity that's built into the legal system of the United States when you have these extrajudicial killings. And nothing happens to the perpetrators, whether they're a police officer or a racist person. You're like, okay, I started paying attention to it when I was 14. It's continued. So I said, yeah, I can't. Yeah, I got to go somewhere else. And of course, I'm not saying there's a utopia living in Mexico, because racism is a universal manifestation. Anywhere where there's been colonization and enslavement, racism is pervasive. Let me ask you, I am a huge fan of Nigeria, and I've spoken to you about this. When I say a huge fan of Nigeria, I told you, what is it? Niger no go carry last. This is our Western Africanized Anglo English or Anglo English. Nigeria is a leader. It's one of the most important, and it is the most densely populated country on the continent. I want to say out of every 6 Black people, 1 person would be Nigerian. Say that again.
It's the most populous Black nation globally.
Yes, in the world. Yeah, excuse me, in the world. So Nigeria is very important. The work that you're doing now for Nigerian children, African children, and you mentioned the Rainbow Foundation, the Mo Rainbow Foundation, and I think I sent you a woman who's doing some work in Sierra Leone. How can this, or are you duplicating this let's say for the region? I gotta ask about Sierra Leone, the Gambia, Senegal, Niger, and then also cross-pollinating it with our Francophone community, and our Lusophone community, because we have these barriers of language. So how are we pushing this thing, growing up this platform?
The books have already been translated into French. I've just not published them yet. They're also being translated into Yoruba and Igbo and Hausa. Now, the thing is, I also want to take them to Swahili, to Kenya. But the thing is funding, right? Everything comes down to money. So we have plans. Number one, we've not even launched the Simone's Oasis platform yet. So we want to do that this last quarter of this year. But yeah, there's some conversations that are very exciting that are happening at the moment regarding my content and regarding my platform. One with a bank, one with a huge, it's I guess the equivalent of Africa's Amazon, and then another with an animation studio who has picked up the animation pilot for this, and we're actually working on the pilot of the animation series, Ugo and Sim Sim, the animation series. And that will allow me, that's so exciting. They are 32 AD animation. They're actually a Nigerian animated studio. And we are working on the pilot now. It should take about 3 months, hopefully not longer. And the idea is that we do this world-class pilot and we can pitch it to the global companies that be, we can pitch it to Amazon, because Prime Video is coming here to Nigeria. We can pitch it to Netflix and pitch it to Google, but we can also put it up at ANSI, which is the African animation conference that happens every year. It's a French-led animation conference. And that possibly we could pitch it at Discop as well, which is where all the big networks go and pick up new shows.
Listen, people, I'm learning a whole lot here. I don't know if you are, but these are big things. These are like big organizations, which I wasn't even aware that there was a animation large company. I didn't even know this. So I'm very excited. I'm very excited for you.
It's like at the moment, it's like right now, currently, today, I'm sitting in 2 worlds. Like I'm on one side where, oh my God, I'm like panicking because I've run out of money, and my staff right now have agreed to continue working for no pay, which is just amazing because they believe in what we're doing. And on the other side, there are these conversations that are starting to happen. Hopefully they'll both meet, because you do something out of love, you do something out of passion. And I'm just figuring out, like, okay, how can we sustain and actually make a living from this? Because there's obviously a market for it. So how do we directly kind of interact with that market? And these conversations that we're having, these deals we're making, will actually allow us to do that. So it's kind of exciting.
I'm very excited for it. I'm very proud. Let me ask you, I want to talk about the ice cream truck.
Mm-hmm. For someone who's dairy free, yeah, the ice cream.
Yeah.
I didn't eat any ice cream.
We can't take ice cream here. We don't have that enzyme. West Africans. She has an ice cream truck, and it's well. I want you to please explain it to our people here.
My husband, he's at Food Truck Bros on Instagram. So he buys and sells these food trucks. We operate our own. We have about 3 on ground now, and then another one just about to come. But he buys and he sells them. So because it allows you to kind of function as a restaurant or a fast food joint without the overheads.
Yeah, they're very popular in the States. Yeah, I love food trucks.
Exactly. So he was bringing 2 in, and he's like, why don't you take one for your business? It'll be a great vehicle, you know, the children's stuff. And I was like, actually, that would be a great activation vehicle, that we could start this thing called Story Time and Ice Cream with Simone's Oasis, where we go to some of our partner locations and we do some book readings, we do some games and videos, and we chop ice cream. I don't chop ice cream, but the children chop ice cream. And we thought, okay, we'll get a frozen roll machine. So we watched YouTube and taught ourselves how to do the frozen rolls. But we're training staff and everything for that. So yeah, so we had our first pilot this weekend. It was so much fun. And we were sponsored by Fan Ice Cream, which turns 60 this year. And then the second day we were sponsored by Alpine Ice Cream. So really, really good ice cream. And we're just kind of getting our heads around everything. But it's really going to work. And we have people asking for it already. So it's fantastic. We don't have any ice cream vans here. So I guess we just decided to be the first one.
Oh, well, that's brilliant. That's brilliant. You know, maybe get a fleet of them to go all over the country and all over the region. You know, that's very brilliant.
We actually have the second one has come. We just got to clear it now. That's it. So
you have 2 now?
Yeah.
Oh my God, you have 2 trucks now.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's so exciting. Let me see. I think I want you to. We talked about the books. We've talked about the collaboration across the continent, dealing with the languages and everything. What I want to know now is what would summarize your brands? What would summarize your brands? What do you hope to see in terms of impact, in terms of education for Nigerian, West African Black children, particularly with differently abled children, special needs children? What do you want to see within our mentality? Obviously, not God, but just basically in the educational systems of the infrastructure, the educational systems of these countries, of Nigeria. What do you hope to see for the future so that these children can be successful? And obviously, it's economics. How can this even make an impact to those who don't have the resources, who don't have the network, who don't have the connections? Because those are the people that, we have to bring everybody up. How can we bring everybody up?
Well, I would say, for example, our tagline is we're empowering the African child through entertainment. So because I believe that it's a great way for people to learn without actually thinking they're learning. And it's a great way to inform without thinking they're being informed. And we go back to our traditional ways of storytelling. Storytelling wasn't just to tell stories. They had a mission in those stories to tell, our bards and our and our traditional singers, they just weren't making noise. You know, we were sending messages by drums. They weren't just random messages. There were things inbuilt into the stories. There were things inbuilt into the culture. And it's just rediscovering that, and how that plays to the structure of the growing mind and the growing mind of a child. And if you're able to get in that as the brain is developing and the cognizance is developing, and that just becomes inbuilt into the system as they grow before it becomes, you know, solidified, then it means that we have hope for the future. Right now, our Play Mama Instagram life and everything isn't really going to do us well in terms of society and morals and empathy and planning for the future. And so it's really important that if we're able to get our children used to understanding these things now, it just becomes second nature to them in the future. And for me, the best way to do that is through visuals, is through entertainment, is through stories. And also kind of trying to dismantle this mediocrity that exists, and that it's just acceptable to be mediocre, and just the apathy, right? We know things are wrong, but you just say, just manage it, and we go manage them. And that's how it is. You just manage. You're just managing. You're managing yourself into an early grave. And it's kind of understanding that actually we don't have to manage. We can actually do better. We don't have to accept, you know, substandard and mediocrity. And that starts from the home. You know, it's all well and good for us to blame the government and blame the education system, but what are you doing inside your house? So it all starts from home. So my mission is actually the home. It's not outside. Once you can impact the home, you impact the outside.
True. This is very true. You know, getting back to our griots and our storytelling and the drums, all of these things are intentional and they have purposes. And you know, the impact of music. And I'll share with you. Living here in Mexico, there is a composer. This city where I live, Orizaba. He's from this city, so he's a son of this city where I live. His name is Francesco. Oh, it begins with a G, I'm forgetting, but his nickname is Cree because he created a character called Cree. I will liken this gentleman to Walt Disney, who, you know, Walt Disney had all these cartoons and characters and, you know, Disneyland, Disney World. So this is like kind of like the Mexican version of Walt Disney from this town where I live. And he has characters that are, that depict, Black people in these stereotypical ways, that negrita sandia, that is a Black boy, a Black girl who eats watermelon. So you see someone who's painted very dark with red lips, and there are songs around this character, and there are plays dedicated to this character, and to this day around, yes, like Sambo and all these things. So yes. And that still continues today in Mexico. You still people use black tar for their skin, and it's impactful because it was presented as a cartoon, as a and it was, it was racism. I mean, Nazi Hitler did it with children in Nazi Germany. So what I'm saying is the flip side of that, and it's still impactful here. It's still informing the opinions of Mexicans here and their perceptions of Black people, dark-skinned people. It's a part of the fabric and the culture. So what you're doing is the same thing, but obviously in the correct way, in the moral way of uplifting us through entertainment, through music. And I still see the impact of what this man has done, 50, 60, whatever years ago. And it's not just Mexico, it's across Latin America. So what you're doing with the Simone's Oasis, Simone and Ugo Tales, the ice cream truck, creating this content, creating these cartoons, all of these things are impactful. All of this imagery is impactful, like you said, in the home, because then they will adopt these attitudes and they will ingest this, and this will become a part of their identity, and they won't be like how I grew up, seeing imagery that didn't represent me. I remember literally being
Animal.
maybe 6 years old thinking if I put white powder on my face, I would go to sleep and I would wake up white and that everything would be okay. So and I know many people who have this, many people who grew up this way. So I think what you're doing is it's sacred work, it's impactful, it's
Thank
powerful.
you.
So I thank you. I thank you. And I know a lot of people who think like me appreciate you. Where can people connect with you? I put her information. You have her LinkedIn, excuse me, not her LinkedIn, her Linktree has all her different platforms. You have the Simone's Oasis information. You have our book, Nomads, Adventurous Women Who Are Changing the World While Traveling. That book is available, the ebook is available tomorrow on Amazon, and the hardback and paperback will be available on Amazon on the 20th of August. Wait a minute, Sarah's asking a question. How do you communicate to Mexico or any other country that portraying Black people like that is wrong? People know that it's wrong, but racism trumps all. Racism is in the marrow, it's in the fabric. People know it's wrong, but they're racist. That's where that comes from. It's wrong, but people are racist.
Can't
Will
go back
continue to be racist.
You're wrong. You don't say, oh, that's rubbish, you're wrong. They won't want to listen to it. The proof is in the pudding. Proof is in the visuals. Proof is like, that exists. Let me give them something else that breaks the stereotype rather than telling them. I find that telling people or, lecturing people, it doesn't really work. So if this is how the way that mindset came in, we'll use that same structure to change that mindset. And that's the goal, because telling people they're wrong or lecturing people and saying they're wrong doesn't really work.
No, it's normal to them. So you have to give, like she said, you have to give them the alternative, and just live your life and break those stereotypes. I want to send a shout out. Let me just send a quick shout out to my little cousin Elizabeth Tassong. She just graduated with a degree in Africana Studies from Oxford University. And what was really cool is that her, along with her mom and dad and the family, had the party at Oxford, and they would jam into Congolese music and Afro beats. And so, and also her professors were West African, okay? So her professors were teaching her about Africa, the diaspora, the history, the antiquity up until now, and they were also African. So I think that's very important. One of the things that she's focusing on, that she focuses on with her studies, is tracing our stolen artifacts. Okay, so her dad is Cameroonian. I'm related to her mom. Her mom is Gambian, Sierra Leone, and her dad is Cameroonian. And she's really digging into these artifacts, particularly from Cameroon, and seeing where our things are in Europe. So that's a part of her studies, and she just finished her master's. So I'm extremely proud of that. And she's a baby. She was born in front of me, and so talk about our future. The impact. Her parents have been impactful, and this girl has, she's studied a whole degree, 2 degrees dedicated to Africana studies and her, identity. So big ups to her and her parents, Astrid and Ivo Tassong. Any last words that you'd like to share with us?
There is no action that is too small. So I just want to say to kind of parents, especially our melanin, black, brown parents, or even our, Oyibo parents who have mixed race or black children, it starts at home. Do the work at home. Don't worry about what's happening outside. Do the work at home, and it will generate itself onwards and upwards. So it's a responsibility.
It will germinate.
Exactly. Our responsibility.
Absolutely.
Parents, it's nobody else's, and we need to take ownership of that, and it starts at home.
Absolutely. I thank you so much for your time today. As I said, Simone's Oasis, at Simone's Oasis, you can connect with Tonye, and tune back in later on today at 3:00 Central Time. I will talk to Suzanne McDaniels. She is an international attorney living in Los Angeles, and she is from Southern Africa, South Africa, Azania. We'll talk about her life, her work, her daughter, and everything. And our book, Nomads, Adventurous Businesswomen that are changing the world while traveling. Thank you all. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you, Sarah, our publisher of Nomad Publishing. Thank you, Suzanne, for tuning in, and whoever else. If I didn't see you or mention your name, that means I didn't see a comment. Thank you, Tonye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.